I think debutantes are popular because they are a remote and archaic character. And I think there is a mystique. It's sort of silly, but also glamorous at the same time. Different kinds of debutantes present day. So I would say there is the kind of country club debutante, and then you have this sort of glitzier New York, more international debutante thing. To me, the most interesting debutantes right now are the ones in Russia and China with this sort of oligarch fathers. You see the debutante reemerge because she's great for a reputation laundering. Ren Zhenfei, who was the CEO of Huawei, his daughter came out at a ball in Paris right as he was being investigated under the Espionage Act. To me, that's really interesting because it kind of gave him an opportunity to sort of clean himself up a little bit in the press. Well, there is a relatively small sliver of people who are like, yes. And then a lot of other people, some of whom are still pretty involved in the debutante world, incredible suspicion. People who read a lot were really enthusiastic because the debutante is just a huge character in literary history, at least in the Anglophone world. One of my favorite events, let's say, in the book was this really gruesome moment where the parents of this young woman named Mary Astor, they ordered all of these butterflies from South America and they were going to release them as she came out. And they opened all the envelopes and they were all dead. And so for me, that was the quintessential debut horror story that also says a lot about what it all is. Probably to the Carnival Balls in New Orleans. There's a pantomime and you have an entire court. It's kind of like a Renaissance fair debutante mashup. I really love the dresses from the 1920s, this kind of flapper debutante, like a Coco Chanel, drop-waisted, narrow to the body, but a debutante version of that. I think those are really lovely. You do get a sense of the girl in the process of liberation. And that's also the moment when really the debutante did lose her utility because World War I, of course, fractured so many social norms and additionally killed so many men that there were no suitors. So you kind of see in those images the transition into the modern. Anyone for whom that time is like pure and beautiful and they don't want to hear about its conflicts, those people hate the book for sure. I also think people who think that the American WASP or the British aristocrat is this aspirational figure who should be somehow revered, those people do not like me or this book. Oh, well, there's an error in the book. Of course, I know the difference between George V and George VI, but yet in my book, I do not. That's kind of getting ripped on Amazon. I think I would have really liked to have seen the balls that happened in Regency London at Almack's, which was this sort of assembly room. There are a lot of really sort of wonderfully bitchy characters who show up, and also women were really running it. Their meetings and their parties tracked with the schedule of Parliament so that all of the parliamentarians could be there at the parties. To me, that would have been really interesting because you see women wielding their soft power. I think the biggest takeaway is that we should take teenage girls seriously. Men and families invested a vast amount of money and power into these girls. They should be taken seriously, not only because of it, but for their own intrinsic value.